Leslie, and welcome to this interview. I am so happy and honored that you have joined us today. The Management and Marketing section is interviewing several of our past members, and we are pleased to interview you because of your significant contribution to the Standing Committee, as a secretary for 4 years and as a member for 8 years. However, you are not only IFLA past, but also very much the future, since you are our incoming IFLA president for 2025 to 2027. And for me personally, you have been such an inspiration and a mentor in many ways. We met in Wroclaw 2017, and I was new to IFLA and its structure. And you and the M&M chair at the time, Nancy Gwynn, answered all my questions and instantly made me feel very welcome. And that is one of your strengths, Leslie. You're very inclusive. You listen to people and you let everyone speak their opinion and be part of the work. So thank you very much for agreeing to participate in this celebratory and historical series. So, on to the questions. Could you please introduce yourself and say a few words about your education and background, and including your current position?
Well, thank you for inviting me to do this interview. I am thrilled to be here with you today. So I'm Leslie Weir. I am the Librarian and Archivist of Canada, and I'm speaking to you from the unsurrendered traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin people, where I have the privilege to live, work, and play. And we recognize that without truth, there cannot be reconciliation with the original peoples. So I became a librarian many years ago after doing a history degree at Concordia University in Montreal. I went on to McGill University, where I did a master's in what was then called Library and Information Science. I then worked originally in a public library in Montreal called Côte Saint Luc, moved on to work in a government library, which was Statistics Canada, which is the government organization responsible for gathering statistics on Canada and carrying out the census. And from there, I went on actually to work in the National Library, which is interesting that I came full circle, becoming the Librarian and Archivist of Canada, returning to an institution that I'd worked for. But in between, I was at the University of Ottawa, and when we first met, I was the university librarian at the University of Ottawa. And of course, as Librarian and Archivist of Canada, I am both the National Archivist and the National Librarian for Canada, which is an incredibly fun job. There's nothing like being able to say that you have the best job in the world, and I have the best job in the world.
Exciting, yeah. So you mentioned your first position, but how come you started to get interested in working in libraries?
Well, it's sort of interesting in that I have to admit it, my mother was a librarian.
Mm-hmm.
So from childhood, we were taken every week on the bus to go to the Fraser Hickson Free Library, which was in the neighborhood next door to where we lived in Montreal West. And we would borrow our books and we would go into the children's side of the library, and my mom would then go into the adult side. And once we had read all the books on the children's side, you had to be 12 before you were allowed to borrow books from the adult side. And that was a bit of a challenge. So then we wanted mom to let us have some of her loans, because you were only allowed to take out a certain number of books so that we could borrow some books from the adult library. That's myself and my two sisters. I decided to study history, which I enjoyed a great deal in high school, and so went on to do a history degree. But all through my studies for my undergrad, I would go home and say, oh, I don't know what I want to be. What am I going to become? You know, I'm not really interested in being a teacher, and I don't really want to be a journalist. I might like to be an actor. And my mother would say, oh, sweetheart, you should become a librarian. And I said, never. I'm never going to become a librarian. That's the one thing I'm not going to do, Mom. But then I got a part-time job working at the Côte St. Luc Public Library, which was open 365 or 66 days of the year from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. It was located in a shopping center, and it was very much an agora for the community to gather. And I actually loved working there. And when I graduated from university, I actually worked there full time for a year, and I was head of the adult circulation, and I managed all of the part-time staff that that covered off the evening and weekend hours. And at that point, I decided maybe I should go to library school and become a librarian, and so applied to McGill University and did my degree there. And I guess the rest is history. And yes, my mother was thrilled.
Of course, yeah.
Of course, I
Um,
should just say the interesting thing now is I have 4 children, and my youngest, I have 2 children that actually are librarians,
oh,
but I
perfect.
never encouraged them. I
It runs
wanted
in the
them to
family.
find their own path. So my youngest of 4 kids just graduated from the University of Toronto iSchool in June, and he's now working out west in Calgary at the University of Calgary.
Yeah, good for him. And for you.
A proud mother.
Of course, yeah. And what about your IFLA history? Could you describe how you first learned about IFLA and how you started to get involved?
So I knew about IFLA probably throughout my career. I sort of knew of IFLA. I did have colleagues that were quite involved, especially those that were active in other library associations, the Canadian Library Association, the Canadian uh, Association of Research Libraries, and the Canadian Urban Library Council. But I didn't engage with IFLA myself until there was a World Library and Information Congress that was being hosted in Canada. So in 2008, on the 400th anniversary of the founding of Quebec, the Congress was held in Quebec City. And so that was my first Congress that I went to. And it was my first engagement with IFLA. And I had a wonderful time, although I found it quite overwhelming because there were so many concurrent sessions. There were so many business meetings going on, and everyone seemed like they had somewhere to be and something to do. And I think for all of us, the first time you go to a conference or a congress, you don't know that many people. You don't know quite how that specific association works. And it's a bit of a learning experience. And so I did enjoy that congress very much. But then I did not get involved immediately with IFLA. But in 2009, a dear colleague and friend of mine, Ingrid Perrin, was elected the first Canadian president-elect of IFLA. And so she was president-elect from 2009 to 2011, and then president from 2011 until 2013. So a number of us in Canada felt that that was a moment for Canadian institutions to step up and become members of and become active in IFLA. So I was the university librarian at the University of Ottawa, and the University of Ottawa Library joined IFLA under my leadership in 2011 to celebrate Ingrid becoming president. I did run for election in the 2011 election, but I was not elected.
Election
Um,
for what position?
well, we'll just leave
If you
that in
want
the
to say.
obscure memory of time
Of
because
course,
who
of
likes
course.
to talk about losses? And of course, IFLA has certain sections and units where it's quite competitive, and other ones where where there are more opportunities to get involved, and it also depends on the cycle, right,
Yeah.
of the members that are on and where they are in terms of their allowable 2 mandates. It was one of the advisory committees that I tried for, and it was probably something that was actually quite competitive.
Mm.
So then I heard about management and marketing, and I saw some of the work that they were doing. And I thought that looks like a really good fit for me. So in the 2013, I think, elections, I ran for to become a member of the section, and I was elected. And that was the beginning, I think, of my more focused involvement with IFLA, and I was able to attend the congresses pretty well from then on, and became quite active at management and marketing, I think, as you well know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And speaking of the conferences, so have you been to every conference since then? And is there any favorites that you have had?
I've enjoyed every Congress that I've gone to. I've been involved in planning open sessions. I've been involved in planning satellite meetings. In fact, I remember we had a great satellite meeting. I think it was in Bergen in Norway just before we went to Rocklau, where you and I met.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't go to that conference, but I've heard a lot about it. So,
It was really, really interesting and great fun to be able to meet, especially meet librarians from the Nordic countries, and to get to visit a country that I'd never been to, because at the time I hadn't been to either Norway or Poland, so it was like two for, as we say, two for one. And the programming was great. And I'll say, each congress is quite different depending on the country hosting it, and I've enjoyed each and every one. Certainly, I especially enjoy being able to connect with colleagues and to network while also getting to experience great programming. And early on, I'll say, with being involved at IFLA, when I went to my very first management and marketing meeting, everybody knew each other,
mhm.
and they were very welcoming. But as the meeting unfolded, it's sort of like everyone had their roles to play, and they all jumped in and volunteered for things, and didn't always leave space for the new people to be able to get more actively involved. And I think that's something that's really, really important when we're in those roles, that we really do create those opportunities. And it was only because people were so enthusiastic, because they were so engaged in the work and so excited. And, it was kind of great when there was kind of the first invitation, well, would you like to, work on this initiative? Would you like to be involved with this, subcommittee or this organizing committee? And I certainly had great fun when I had an opportunity to work with the academic and research libraries to do a joint open session at a Congress. And I really found it interesting the way management and marketing goes sort of across, because it's multidisciplinary. And there are great collaborations with so many different sections and special interest groups and other units, the strategic committees, because there's such connections that can be made. And so anyway, I've loved every Congress I've been to. I mean, I don't want to, it's like selecting one of your children over others, but I had a great time in Lyon, a great time in Kuala Lumpur. I loved Helsinki. Um, and certainly in my more recent role as one of the division chairs and a member of the professional council, it was so great when we were able to gather back together in Dublin after not being able to gather in the previous years because of the issues around the pandemic, and to be able to reconnect with people in person. I mean, it's great the way we can leverage technology and the way IFLA and all of its units have really created opportunities for webinars and for doing professional development and connecting with IFLA volunteers and members. But there's nothing like gathering together in person. And I will say, we've had a few memorable mid-year meetings. And of course, management and marketing is responsible for the Press Reader International Marketing Award, and the privilege to get to be involved with that jury and be able to see all the incredible marketing initiatives from libraries all around the world. Like, there's just so many different opportunities to engage with people working in libraries and with libraries that are doing really cool stuff. And I mean, because you've been involved in terms of that award, there were libraries with huge budgets that did fabulous promotional campaigns that were massively successful. And there were people who had no budget and created just as impactful campaigns that really did have an impact on the people in their community. And it was great to be able to create opportunities for people to see best practice and be able to take that and modify it to fit into their library and their community, and be able to take sort of best practice and good lessons learned, and then be able to make that help them be successful in their community and make their communities more successful. So just so many. Sorry, I went way off our tangent on that, but I'm just very enthusiastic about some of the great experiences and opportunities that IFLA's created.
Yeah, there are quite a few. But thinking about your early experiences with IFLA and IFLA these days, how would you say that IFLA has changed, or the community has changed during that time?
I think one of the biggest things is just looking at kind of a generational shift as we see, all associations have a cycle, and at certain points, there are a lot of younger members, and the older members get to share their experience and knowledge, as do the younger members. But I think when I look at when we gather for the Congress, it's just great to see so many people that are earlier or mid-career and what they're bringing to IFLA in terms of what matters to them. And so I just kind of love seeing that. I think we're in a period where we're certainly losing some wonderful, long-time committed members, and hopefully they're able to share their experiences, before they sort of retire and maybe take on new opportunities in the next stage of their life. But it's really great to see vibrant new professionals, to see work going on, to support people earlier in their career, to get involved in leadership and develop those skills and opportunities. So I think that's one of the big things, because I think when I first went to IFLA, there were a lot of people who'd been engaged with IFLA for a very long period of time. And then we moved into a bit more of a stage where we've got people that are earlier in their engagement with IFLA and their involvement. So that's what stands out, I think, the most for me.
Yeah, it's really must be a mix, right? Because it takes quite a long time to understand the structure and to get involved, but also it must be possible for people to get involved and then cycle off to something else. And I guess it's kind of a balance.
Exactly. It's a balance. And I think an association like IFLA does attract people that are at different stages in their careers and from all different kinds of professional roles that they're playing, which may be in information management, they may be in traditional libraries, they may be in very untraditional kinds of jobs. That just brings together a really kind of interesting mix.
Yeah. If you had the opportunity to give some advice to a young professional starting to work in the library field today, what would it be? Doesn't have to be about IFLA, could be anything or.
I would say two things. I would say be open to opportunities. Sometimes we maybe are too single-minded, and when opportunities arise, either we question whether we have imposter syndrome sometimes, where we think, oh, I couldn't do that, or we think, well, I was planning to, this isn't part of my plan, so I'm sticking with my plan, and I'm not necessarily going to be open to this opportunity. So I would say being open to opportunity, and don't count yourself out if there's an opportunity and you don't feel that you're fully qualified. You'll develop in the role. You'll learn from the people that you're with, and it will make you a better professional in the library and information field, and it'll actually probably give you skills you can use in all aspects of your life. So be open to opportunity. And number two, network with people. Build relationships with different kinds of people in different kinds of roles in different professions. And, once again, we'll learn through that. Sometimes people in the library and information world only hang out kind of with library and information professionals, but it can also be interesting to connect with people in related fields, certainly in the galleries, museums and archives, but also in academia, also in government, also in other kinds of professions, maybe even architecture, because you might end up renovating a library branch or building a new building. So I would just say, I think that those two things, being open to opportunities and getting engaged and involved in the library and information community, and then leveraging networking opportunities. And in those networking opportunities, play the dual role of you're going to gain things from those networking opportunities, but at the same time, you're going to give things. And especially when you have opportunities to engage with people that are newer into the profession. That'd be my advice.
Yeah, good advice. That got me a bit curious about you, because you said some people have a plan for their career and some go with opportunities. What kind of person are you? Have you been open to opportunities, or did you have a plan that you have followed through the years?
I remember when I graduated from McGill University, my closest friends and I sat down together, and there were four of us that were quite tight, and it was funny because two of us had plans. We knew where we wanted to go and what we wanted to be, and two of us didn't. I was one of the didn't. So I did not have a career path mapped out. I was quite open about whether I would work in public libraries or in special libraries or in national libraries or academic. But I was still, in those days, it was sort of library focused because, not of course, but the internet didn't exist. The world was quite a different place. And I had opportunities to do many different things. So I worked in as I say, public, special, government, academic libraries, and I worked in everything from my first job after graduating from library school was in cataloging. I am a big stroke person, less of a detailed person, so that was an interesting fit. But I learned a lot. I'm not sure that I was the best cataloger. I think I was a good cataloger. But as I had other opportunities, I worked in collections development. I worked in IT. I worked, so information technology. I worked in reference. I worked in electronic resources, um, and in management and leadership. And so I had many different kinds of experiences and opportunities, and I really enjoyed that. And I did generally take advantage of opportunities that arose. But I certainly had my moments of imposter syndrome where I thought, well, why are they asking me to do this? I mean, I'm not the expert. I'm not the one that has maybe the most experience. But I was always ready to kind of throw myself into things and contribute. And I think, that's a really important part, is when you do get involved, that you're there to contribute and to work together in a team to accomplish whatever the goals are of the association or the institution. Yeah.
Yeah. And did you have any favorite jobs during your career, except from the one you're having right now, which is the best job?
Well, when I was the university librarian at University of Ottawa, I thought that was the best job. So kind of each job that I've had has been the best job at the time. And I'm lucky that I've never had to do a job that I really disliked, where I was just kind of putting in my time. I have, so I've had great experiences in my jobs. I certainly enjoyed being the university librarian at the University of Ottawa, since I was there just as the internet was really blossoming, and the libraries were starting to look at their print collections and really moving more into electronic collections. And I was able to be involved in the early creation of a consortium to acquire electronic resources in Canada. And I was also involved in creating something called Scholars Portal, which is at the Ontario Council of University Libraries, which is an infrastructure that serves all of the academic libraries, all the universities in Ontario, the largest province of Canada. And like that started with an interlibrary loan system, and then we started locally loading journals, and then we looked at ebooks, and then we moved into geographic and information systems and looked at research data and created really an incredible infrastructure to support the libraries and the universities in Ontario. So I would say my timing was really good, in that there was a great deal of change taking place, and there was incredible opportunity to be involved with that change. And I will say I had a very important opportunity when I was at the University of Ottawa. We had something that was called the double cohort. So in Ontario, high school used to go to grade 13, but the rest of the provinces only went to grade 12 in Canada. So there was a certain year, it was decided that Ontario needed to switch to just have grade 12 and no grade 13. And so there was one year when we had 2 graduating classes. So the kids coming into the university, there was like double the number of kids. So it was an opportunity to create new programs in universities. It was an opportunity to build collections, and create new services. And I did have an opportunity to create a new school of information studies at the University of Ottawa, which is a bilingual French-English program, because the Ottawa area where I live and work, Ottawa-Gatineau, has a large number of libraries, but it didn't have a program to educate librarians. So it was very exciting to be able to actually create the newest library school, which is accredited by the American Library Association in Canada. And I've had a lot of opportunities to do really fun and interesting things.
Yeah, sounds great. Thinking about the future, what expectations do you have for the coming years?
I'm really excited. I think in some ways we live in challenging times, and challenging can be challenging good, and it can be challenging. I think we've got incredible people that are being attracted to the profession, and I think that the importance of critical thinking and of people having access to information, and with the advent of social media and kind of the way things have gone politically in terms of polarization and some of the activities in North America around censorship, I just think that libraries are so critically important to underpinning our communities and our societies, and and for those of us that live in democratic countries, they really underpin democracy. And I'm proud of the work that libraries do, all the different types of libraries. I can especially see how critical public libraries were through the pandemic in terms of what was going on in their communities, and the pivotal roles they played in supporting their communities. And of course, now, we're all talking about artificial intelligence. Now, artificial intelligence has been with us for decades. But as we move into generative and the next generations of artificial intelligence, it also creates, I think, huge opportunities for libraries to play key roles in ensuring that artificial intelligent applications are used in an ethical way that will really serve society and not undermine it. And I think that libraries will be the voices that ensure that AI is demystified and that people that are using it understand how they're using it and what impact it can have and where it can help them. I'm a strong believer that the human beings should still make the decisions, but AI can really, really provide support. Certainly at Libraries and Archives Canada, we're doing a lot of work in terms of making our collections more discoverable, because we have the fifth largest collections of published of documentary heritage in the world. And while our library collections are very well described, our archival collections are less well described. And it creates a huge opportunity to be able to create metadata for things like photographs and architectural plans and other parts of collections, to make them more accessible. And then to look at how we can link our collections together, that old open link data where people shouldn't have to know if something's a primary source or a secondary source. They just need to know how to find their way to the information that they need. And then hopefully we help people widen their circle of what information they think they need, because maybe sometimes they're too busy listening to people that share their beliefs and not investing enough in understanding why other people believe different things. So I think it is a very exciting time, and I think we've got great people in the sector, and I think we'll continue to play a really important role globally. I'm excited to be part of it. I think you are too.
I am, yeah, yeah. It's an exciting time. Well, thank you so much for sharing all these stories
So Anya,
and
I can't resist.
anecdotes.
I just want to share one other. Sorry, I
Sure,
spoke
yeah,
over you.
go ahead,
Just
go
want to share
ahead.
one other. Do you remember the snowball fight we had in front of 395 Wellington at Libraries and Archives Canada at our mid-year meeting,
I
where
do,
everyone
yeah.
arrived, and we hosted that meeting at Libraries and Archives Canada, and everyone got in just before the snowstorm, and then we had this big snowstorm, and so there we were. We didn't actually throw the snowballs; we just kind of played with them, but around our secret bench of knowledge, and we had great fun. Almost
It
as
was
much fun
fun.
as we had at the mid-year meeting that you hosted in Stockholm.
That was fun too, visiting the ABBA museum,
ABBA.
seeing Dancing Queens. Yeah.
Exactly. And boy, we are all great musicians and great singers. I can tell you from that experience, but also the opportunity you created to visit libraries and connect with the library community in Stockholm. Like it was great too. And that's kind of part of the magic of IFLA.
Yeah, I think that's, as you say, the magic of IFLA, connecting people with the same library ideas and skills, or different skills, of course, to hardworking people working a lot together, but also doing social things and having fun. So it's a great
Exactly.
mixture. Yeah,
A great mixture.
yeah.
So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all your histories and memories and visions for the future. Your interview is a valuable contribution to the history of the Management and Marketing Standing Committee. Thank you very much, Leslie, and talk to you soon.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity, and congratulations on all the work that you did as chair of management and marketing.